Welcome, everybody. LanceScurvX here of the Scurv podcast. I want to talk about something that I've noticed more and more, and I've tried to figure out what it's all about. Why are we fighting strangers online? That's the thought that I woke up with this morning. I woke up this morning thinking about this, and it's become almost impossible to ignore when you spend any amount of time watching what's happening on social media. I'm on social media a whole lot, and for the last 25 years, I've created a lot of content. I'm not a person to scroll and watch people's pages and peep at people and pick fights, and I'm a creator. I think of creative things to put out there, not as validation, not as pleas for attention, because I have a full life. But evidently, there are a lot of people who don't. And they get on here with all types of idiosyncrasies and hang-ups, and I swear, mental illnesses, seriously. They hold down jobs, they retire, they're older, they're younger. They perform out in the outside world, but they have another world that they indulge in, right? But Black people are arguing with complete strangers on the internet, and somehow we've convinced ourselves that this constant fighting represents community. We don't need another enemy because apparently we have Wi-Fi. Give somebody a smartphone, a comment section, a controversial video, and a little free time. Worse if they have a lot of time. And suddenly people who have never met each other are preparing for emotional warfare as though they're sitting across the kitchen table from one another, as in this banner that you see. Somebody can post a 30-second video, and before you know it, the comments have turned into a battlefield over a multitude of topics. A battlefield speaking about Black men, how they're no good, Black women, how they're gold diggers and superficial, relationships, how nobody wants to be in one anymore, money, politics, age, masculinity, femininity, success, failure, and everything else that can possibly divide people. You think that's a good use of time? Really? All of that energy spent that way and you're not creating a legacy? After you die, all of this stuff is gone. So why can't you do something constructive to really enhance a person's life? See, I don't understand it. What makes this even more interesting is how quickly an individual person's behavior gets turned into a statement about millions of people. This is what I don't get. You know, you have these white folks that get on, they'll see a video of maybe a Black man robbing a store, and then they'll say, yes, the usual suspects. Like this is all we do. So one person's individual behavior becomes a statement about millions of people. And we do that on each other. One person does something foolish and suddenly it becomes Black men are this, or Black women are that, or young people are destroying everything, or older people don't understand anything. A single person becomes a representative for an entire group. And now everybody is expected to defend or attack a category of people because of what one individual did on a screen that you don't even know, right? And even if you know them, you don't know them, really. Before long, people aren't even talking about the original situation anymore. They're arguing about identity, pride, gender, and who supposedly represents the entire Black community. Impossible. I'm watching all of this and asking a very simple question. When did this become community? Because community isn't supposed to leave you emotionally exhausted every time you open your phone. Community isn't supposed to make you hate people you've never met, and a few you have. Community isn't supposed to convince you that every disagreement is an attack and every different opinion is evidence that somebody is your enemy. Something is going terribly wrong when people can spend hours arguing with strangers online and walk away believing they've done something productive for the culture. I have a lot of theories on that, but look back at the civil rights era, which should be called the human rights era. And we banded together to fight against something. I mean, the tactics of marching is not effective today. But at least with bus boycotts and product boycotts and boycotting, speaking out, banding together as a real community. It doesn't happen now. Why? Because we put our energy into social media, yapping, and it actually doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean any action. We have social media so-called influencers that talk, and people get behind these people. I'll call a name, like a Tariq Nasheed, FBA, and we're not African, and we're not. And the people, black people, follow behind people like that, like sheeple. Then you have other movements, and people attack each other. When I moved out here to Ghana, I had people who were online attacking me. Unbelievable. People that I was cool with, but they took it upon themselves because they're suffering in their private life, but they can't show that because I moved to Africa. And 2 or 3 years before that, they were pleading with me, how can I move out of here? People, like I said, we got mental issues, y'all. And the disagreements that we conjure up, it's otherworldly. But I'm not saying that disagreement is bad. Proper disagreement is necessary. Different opinions are necessary. Debate is necessary. But people should be able to challenge one another and speak their minds. The problem starts when disagreement becomes disrespect, when conversation becomes combat, and when people become more interested in humiliating somebody than understanding what they're actually saying. That's when social media stops being a tool for communication and starts becoming a machine for emotional warfare. Really and truly. And like I said about the civil rights movement, in the present day, we're pouring all of our energy into technology and speaking out. People want to listen, some don't listen, some challenge, and we're spinning our wheels and getting nowhere. And I believe that's one of the byproducts from the oppressor, that he figured out that, yeah, we'll get these people talking, they can show their image, their vain, they want attention, and there'll be no movement. And you'll have people that talk the talk, but nobody's doing the damn thing. This is why for me, I'm gonna tell you straight up, I'm with anybody who's about elevating our people, but I have no problem not dealing with you when you have these narcissistic tendencies. You want to battle people, you want to crush a person's platform to get more numbers, and then what? You're gonna die anyway, they're gonna forget about you. Like, that's why I basically move solo until I see you're a proven product, a proven person, a proven entity. I don't get down with the whole group thing anymore. I used to do that years ago. But all it breeds is people arguing and people whispering and people gossiping. No, it's like being in a quicksand pit. I don't want to be in that. Like, after I finish this presentation, I'm going to go out and enjoy the sun and go to the market and talk with people and live a real life. Got no time to spend peeping and arguing and making fake profiles to come say something funny to someone. That is just too much work. Are you getting paid for it? Can you get that time back? And this is what I want to talk about, because this isn't simply about social media. It's about psychology. It's about validation. It's about loneliness. It's about identity. It's about generations. It's about Black community. More importantly, it's about what happens to us when we allow strangers on a screen to have more influence over our emotions than the people who actually know us, love us, and live around us. How does that work? We've given strangers too much authority over our emotions. and our value, self-worth. And I see people they gotta keep their face on the screen. Like they have a fear of not being seen, and you gotta wonder how these people have been raised. And I'm talking about, yeah, the business of social media, you have to keep putting stuff out. Granted, but these useless posts where a person says nothing for 45 seconds every day, nobody wants to see that. But think about how strange this really is. Somebody you never met can type a sentence underneath your comment, and suddenly your entire mood changes. You don't know where this person lives. You don't know their background. You don't know what they've experienced. You don't know whether they're telling the truth. You don't know whether they're having a terrible day. They could be a nice person, I don't know. You don't even know whether they're deliberately trying to provoke you. Yet somehow a stranger can type, "You're an idiot." And that's a nicer comment. It could be something else. They can call you a brownish tinged orifice. And now you're pacing around your house preparing a 17-paragraph response. No. That's how much emotional authority we've handed to people who have done absolutely nothing to earn it. We've allowed people who don't know us to determine whether we're angry, offended, embarrassed, frustrated, or ready to fight. And the person on the other end may be sitting there laughing because they've discovered something about you. They discovered exactly which button to push. Once somebody realizes that they can provoke you into responding, you've become part of their entertainment. This is happening right now with boxer Clarissa Shields. And because she's dating a married man, living with him living with her, whichever, who is married to rapper Remy Ma, people are knowing Clarissa Shields not because of her great boxing ability, but because she can't shut up. And anybody who makes a comment about her, she responds. So now it's consumed her mind, and now she's every day her insecurities are coming out. And it's a nasty situation. She's losing endorsements. I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. But you don't know who is making a false, fake profile and coming at you to say something. You know, there are mechanisms in place to find IP addresses and stuff, and I welcome anybody to come and say something stupid. I'm not going to even acknowledge it, but I can quickly find you and expose you. I have a team of hackers that will, look, I'm not going to say too much. But you think your email's private? They want to come at me? Okay. Let's just see. You know, but that's something people have to understand about the internet. Not everybody who engages you wants to understand you. Some people want information. Some people want conversation. Some people want to debate honestly. Yes, they do. But you got to weed them out. But some people want a reaction. They're looking for attention, and your anger is the payment. The more upset you become, the more attention they receive. You may think you're winning the argument because you have the better point, but the other person may have already gotten exactly what they wanted from you. And like I said, you'll have people who may have been around you, who make fake profiles to talk to you all the time, come on your shows every day, and they're not who they say they are. People have weird attractions, weird fetishes, weird connections. There could be something about you they like. And just the same way, there's something about you that, you know, they don't like. Maybe you reminded them of somebody. Maybe your confidence or the life they know you're living is pissing them off every time they have to punch that clock. Damn it, that Lance is just chilling out up in the mountains in Ghana. I earned it. I'm old enough. I worked hard for it. But people will, you know, and you think the little things that you show don't give a big indication of your life. You'll take a picture in front of your garage. The garage door is open. You have a Mercedes-Benz parked there. That's in the background, kind of faded, but they can sure see that Mercedes logo. Now they're mad because you have a better car than them. And that wasn't even the purpose of the photo. And some people, like I've seen people in Orlando, I was walking at the Florida Mall in the parking lot. I was going inside and I saw a guy standing next to, what was it, either a Lamborghini or a Maserati or something. And he's like, "Hey, brother, can you take a picture of me?" So he's leaning up against the car. And so I'm standing real close. He's, no, move back. I want to show the car. I'm like, "Hey, you got a nice car there." And he starts giggling. So then a really sexy woman walked by. I'll say it that way. She had some tight business on. Sexy according to the world, the lust-creating type of sexy. So he called her over. She thought that was his car, and he wanted to take a picture with her. So when I handed his phone back, and I walked away, he's trying to talk to her, but she didn't want to be bothered. She realized the car wasn't his, false advertising, and he walked away. And later on, it was funny because I went back to my car, and he was going to his real car, and it was this old 1975 looking Ford pickup that was rusted. I was like, "Wait a second, isn't that your car over there?" He starts laughing. So now he's going to put those up on social media and become attractive to the gold diggers who are out there because they think he has money. Ain't that sick? That's sick. And when it comes to the combative nature of social media, they want that response. And we have to have emotional discipline. And that's why emotional discipline has become so important. You don't have to respond to everything that mentions you. You don't have to correct everybody. You don't have to defend yourself against every accusation. You don't have to prove your intelligence to somebody who has already decided that you're stupid. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. There are moments when silence isn't weakness. Silence is wisdom. Another little point I want to make is that when you have these narcissistic entities around you, when they can't control you or they fear you're being liked by more people or you're going to blow up, like they say online, they'll start their smear campaign. And they'll go around to tell people fake things about you to control your narrative before people begin to connect with you. I'll say this: don't respond. Be quiet about it, because it'll pass. And that narcissistic entity will be revealed over time. Because he can't be you. When you're attacked that way, people see your energy and they want it for themselves. And they may have something great about themselves, but they don't want you to have you, so they want to destroy you. See? The internet is it's infested with these types. But back to the whole arguing point. We've confused disagreement with disrespect. Another problem I see is the way disagreement has become personal. Somebody can have a different opinion about relationships, politics, money, family, or culture, and suddenly people act as though their entire identity has been attacked. There's a difference between saying, "I disagree with you," and saying, "You're worthless." Unfortunately, social media has blurred that line so badly that many people no longer know how to disagree without trying to destroy the other person. There was a time when two people could have a heated disagreement and still sit down and eat together later. You can argue with somebody, walk away, cool off, and come back the next day. You can have different opinions without deciding that the other person was evil. You could disagree with somebody without trying to make sure everybody else hated them too. There was a certain amount of social friction that people had to learn to navigate because you couldn't simply block everybody out of your physical world like you can do online. Now we can create digital bubbles where everybody agrees with us, everybody talks like us, everybody thinks like us, and everybody confirms what we already believe. You didn't think about that. Most of the time, people block people, and now they have an unrealistic view of their views in the world because everybody that they allowed in their bubble agrees with them. Then the moment we encounter somebody who doesn't fit inside that bubble, we treat them like an intruder. That's not strength. That's fragility. If your beliefs can only survive around people who agree with you, then you haven't developed strong beliefs. You've developed an echo chamber. I know many are not going to like hearing that, but that's the truth. Real confidence allows disagreement. Real intelligence can listen to an opposing argument without immediately becoming defensive. Real maturity understands that somebody can disagree with you without hating you. And real community requires enough emotional strength to survive differences. This is where the conversation becomes especially important for the Black community. We have to stop allowing one person's foolishness to become an indictment against an entire group. Somebody does something ridiculous online, and suddenly Black men are being discussed as though every Black man personally participated. A Black woman does something controversial, and suddenly every Black woman is expected to answer for it. Somebody makes a bad relationship decision, and suddenly an entire gender is declared hopeless. That's intellectually lazy. It's also dangerous. Human beings are individuals before they are categories. Every person has a different upbringing, different wounds, different experiences, different values, and different levels of emotional maturity. If you can't figure that out with a person who you go to work with every day, or somebody who lives around you, how are you going to figure this out when it's a faceless person behind a keyboard typing something online? You can't take one person's behavior and use it as scientific evidence about an entire population. Yet social media encourages exactly that kind of thinking because outrage spreads faster when it's attached to a larger group. That's the science of social media. Many of your influencers know that, and this is why they frame their work a certain way so the outrage can go out and the clicks can come in. A person doing something foolish is a story about that person. It doesn't automatically become a story about Black America. A bad relationship is a relationship problem. It doesn't automatically become evidence that an entire gender is broken. A young person making a terrible decision doesn't mean an entire generation has lost its mind. An older person making a terrible decision doesn't mean everybody over a certain age is out of touch. We have to learn how to keep the individual where the individual belongs. Otherwise, we spend our lives fighting imaginary representatives instead of dealing with actual human beings. The comment section has become a substitute for a community. Really and truly. We're in the comment section more, and I'm not saying everybody, more than we are walking around where we live in our neighborhood and our community. Do we have community groups anymore? But we damn sure have involvement in comment section. This is where I think we have to redefine what community actually means. Community isn't simply a group of people who agree with you. Community should be able to support you, correct you, challenge you, teach you, encourage you, and sometimes tell you that you're completely wrong. Somebody who loves you enough to tell you the truth can be more valuable than 1,000 strangers who tell you whatever makes you feel good. That's the difference between community and the echo chamber. The echo chamber tells you what you want to hear. Community gives you what you need to hear. An echo chamber protects your ego. Community can protect your future. An echo chamber makes you feel powerful. Community can make you accountable. And many people, I won't say most, but a whole lot of people do not want to be held accountable. So they create their own little worlds, their own cults, their own following, so their egos can be stroked. Real community has friction. Real community has elders and young people. Real community has different personalities and different opinions. Real community includes people who have made mistakes and people who are still learning. Real community requires patience because you can't throw everybody away every time they disappoint you. The internet has made it possible to create the illusion of community without actually having relationships. You can have thousands of followers and still have nobody who would come sit beside you when life falls apart. Trust and believe. You can receive hundreds of comments and still feel completely alone when the phone goes silent. You can have people cheering for your opinion without having anybody who knows the real you. A lot of the imagery that these influencers have is false. I happen to know a few of them. And the image is diametrically opposed to what the real deal is of how they are. But that's not for me to say. That's why we have to be careful about calling every digital connection community. Engagement isn't necessarily intimacy. Followers aren't necessarily friends. Agreement isn't necessarily love. And an audience isn't necessarily a family. Here's where the psychology gets even deeper. Social media platforms are designed around attention, and conflict can capture enormous amounts of attention. Anger makes people stop scrolling. Outrage makes people comment. Ridicule makes people share. Arguments create engagement. The system doesn't know that you're trying to have a peaceful morning. It only knows that thousands of people suddenly became interested in an argument. That creates an environment where people can learn that outrage gets rewarded. Somebody discovers that when you say something inflammatory, people rush into the comments. They discover that if they insult a particular group, people will fight them. They discover that if they make a sweeping statement about black men or black women, people will immediately start defending themselves. After a while, controversy can become a personality, and very profitable also. Now the person isn't communicating anymore. They're performing. They're not trying to understand anybody. They're trying to generate a reaction, and the audience becomes part of the machine. You see? That's why I keep coming back to emotional discipline. You have to understand what your attention is worth. Every time you give somebody your attention, you're giving them a piece of your life. You're giving them your time. You're giving them your mental energy. You're allowing whatever they said to occupy space inside your mind. Some things simply aren't worth the rent. Trust and believe. The black man versus the black woman war. We know it all so well. Nowhere does this become more obvious than in the endless arguments between black men and black women online. Every day, there seems to be another argument about dating, marriage, masculinity, femininity, money, standards, attraction, loyalty, and who supposedly needs whom more. The internet can make it look as though black men and black women are permanently at war. Some people have turned dating into a courtroom. Everybody has evidence. Everybody has screenshots. Everybody has a story about somebody's cousin, somebody's ex, somebody's friend, or somebody they saw on the internet. Somebody says, "This is what black women do." Somebody responds, "This is what black men do." Then another person comes along and says, "That's why I don't date them anymore." Wait a minute. Who are we even talking about? You can't build healthy relationships while spending all day constructing arguments about why the opposite sex is terrible. If you constantly convince yourself that the people you're supposed to connect with are dangerous, selfish, dishonest, disloyal, or incapable of love, eventually you're going to become emotionally prepared to be alone. And this is why there are many people alone. I know young people who are alone, and the sadder part is I know some older people who are alone, and they're like, I want attention. I want attention. When the phone goes silent, they're alone and lonely again. There are bad men. There are bad women. There are selfish people, dishonest people, immature people, and emotionally unavailable people. But there are also good men and good women. There are people who want healthy relationships. There are people who want families. There are people who want peace. There are people who have learned from their mistakes and are trying to become better. Yes, but do they get represented? No, because it doesn't cause outrage online. There are a lot of good, healthy people out here. And I also find that people who have the mindset that the opposite sex is bad, all black women are bad, all black men are bad, they box themselves into a corner. And when they do see a healthy relationship, they become very curious and very envious. Now they are mad. Now they're like, why don't I have a man? So they try to find a flaw in that relationship online. It's a lot of craziness going on. And a lot of these people are not putting the energy that they need to put into their own lives to make their own lives better. See, they grab the phone, they get on the computer, the laptop, the tablet, and they're foraging for something to support the sad situation that their life has become. The internet doesn't always show you those people because peace, the peaceful ones, the healthy ones, doesn't always generate the same amount of noise or conflict. A healthy couple quietly loving one another isn't nearly as entertaining as two strangers screaming at each other about gender roles. Yet if we allow the loudest people online to define our expectations of one another, we're going to destroy relationships before they ever had a chance to begin. How sad. Now we all know I'm 63 years old. And I'm not going to pretend that my generation got everything right. We had our problems too. We made mistakes. We had unhealthy relationships. We had bad communication at some points. We carried emotional baggage. Nothing was perfect. We had people who refused to change. Every generation has its problems. But there was something we had to learn that technology has made much easier to avoid today. We had to live with people. We couldn't block your entire neighborhood. You couldn't unfollow your auntie. You couldn't mute your mother. You couldn't delete your cousin because they said something you didn't like. You had to figure out how to navigate people. You had to learn how to read body language. You had to learn when to speak, when to listen, when to apologize, and when to walk away. You also had to learn that not every conflict required an audience. If you had a problem with somebody, you can handle it between the two of you. Today, somebody can have an argument with one person and immediately bring 10,000 spectators into it. Now, something that could have been resolved privately becomes public entertainment. That's a huge cultural shift. We've gone from learning how to live with difficult people to learning how to eliminate difficult people from our digital environments. Sometimes that's necessary because boundaries matter, but there's a difference between having healthy boundaries and becoming incapable of dealing with anybody who challenges you. Life doesn't work that way. Eventually, you're going to encounter somebody you disagree with. You're going to work with somebody you don't like. You're going to have a family member who gets on your nerves. You're going to meet somebody whose personality clashes with yours. Maturity isn't the ability to eliminate every difficult person. Sometimes maturity is learning how to maintain your peace while dealing with difficult people. And remember, even if your personal disagreement doesn't go viral or have 10,000 followers watching it online, it can still be shared in the shadows, through emails, through social media where it's not posted but directly to people. So you can still have this big audience or a big smear campaign go on and you won't see it. It's like having bugs, termites behind the walls, eating away at the wood. And you don't see it, but damage is being done. You see what I mean? One of the greatest signs of maturity is realizing that you don't have to win every argument. I know that sounds simple. It does. But apparently it's one of the hardest lessons for people to learn. Some arguments are traps. Some people aren't trying to understand you. They're trying to exhaust you. Some people aren't asking questions because they want information. They're setting bait. Some people don't want a conversation. They want a reaction. And when you give them that reaction, they've already won. They don't have to prove their argument. They don't have to change your mind. They simply wanted to get you emotionally involved. And you volunteered. You gave them your time, your attention, and your peace. That's why I've learned that every battle doesn't deserve my participation. At my age, I've seen enough human behavior to understand that you cannot debate stupidity out of somebody. You cannot reason with somebody who has made up their mind that they don't want to reason. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is say nothing. That's why wisdom walks away. I'm 63, like I said before. So I'm allowed to have one of those old man moments every now and then. I've lived long enough to watch technology go from something that seemed almost magical to something that's now sitting in everybody's pocket. We have smartphones, artificial intelligence, instant communication, video calls, social media, and access to more information than any previous generation could have ever imagined. And yet somehow, with all of this incredible technology, people still can't leave a fool alone. Back in the day, somebody's grandmother might have looked at them and said, "Baby, leave that fool alone." That might have been the entire lesson. Now we have a 12-page comment, 3 response videos, somebody reacting to the response video, and somebody else creating a podcast about the argument. We've turned "Leave That Fool Alone" into a media franchise. And maybe we need to return to some of that old wisdom. Sometimes you really do need to leave the fool alone. Not because you're afraid, not because you're lost, not because you don't have anything to say. You leave the fool alone because your peace is worth more than proving a point to somebody who doesn't matter to your life. Really and truly, are they paying your bills? Or are they encouraging you? Are you working towards something together? They bring nothing. And usually their lives are miserable. You may not know it, but they're mad at you because they're comparing themselves to you, and now they want to get a rise out of you to take them away temporarily from their misery. I've learned that. I've learned that years ago, and I've learned it quite recently. And that's what it is. Don't be mad at me because you made bad decisions. Don't be mad at me because your life is miserable. I'm free, and I'm going to keep it that way. And I'm holding on to my peace. So why are people doing this? Why are people so desperate to be heard? Why does a stranger's disagreement feel so threatening? Why does somebody need to respond to every criticism? Why does somebody feel compelled to turn every disagreement into a public battle? You see, maybe part of the answer is that people are hungry for validation. People want to feel seen. They want to feel important. They want to feel respected. They want to feel that their opinions matter. They want somebody to recognize them, and the internet can provide that feeling instantly. A person who feels invisible in their everyday life can suddenly make one comment and receive 50 responses. People are quoting them. People are agreeing with them. People are attacking them. People are sharing their words. Suddenly, for a few minutes, that person feels important. That feeling, to many, can become addictive. And once somebody learns that controversy gives them attention, they may begin creating controversy simply to experience that attention again. The argument becomes the drug. The reaction becomes the reward. The audience becomes the validation. That's when we have to look beyond the behavior and understand the psychology behind it. Sometimes the loudest person in the room isn't the strongest person in the room. Sometimes the loudest person is simply the person who desperately needs to be heard. That brings me back to the question I started with. When did this become community? Because if we spend all day attacking each other, what are we actually building? If Black men spend all day explaining why Black women are the problem, what are we building? If Black women spend all day explaining why Black men are the problem, what are we building? If older women spend all day insulting younger people, what are we building? If younger people spend all day insulting older people, what are we building? If everybody is busy proving that everybody else is the problem, what's left to build anything? That's the question I want people to sit with at the end of the day. Because complaining about the condition of the community while spending your time attacking everybody inside the community is a contradiction. You can't say you want unity while constantly feeding division. You can't say you want healthy relationships while teaching people to distrust the entire agenda. You can't say you want peace while spending your days looking for somebody to fight. At some point, we have to become more interested in building than arguing. Community is built when people can sit across from each other and disagree without destroying the relationship. Community is built when somebody can correct you without becoming your enemy. Community is built when people can laugh together, cry together, teach each other, and hold each other accountable. Community means somebody knows who you really are when the camera is off. Community means somebody will check on you when you disappear. Community means somebody can tell you that you're wrong and you'll actually listen. Community means somebody can forgive you after you make a mistake. Community means you can disagree today and still have enough love and maturity to talk tomorrow. That's something a comment section can't manufacture. A comment section can give you an audience, but it can't automatically give you relationships. It can give you engagement, but it can't automatically give you intimacy. It can give you visibility, but it can't automatically give you belonging. We have to stop confusing those things. I'm not telling anybody to leave social media. I'm not telling anybody to stop speaking their mind. I'm not telling anybody to accept disrespect. I'm not telling anybody to become silent when something genuinely needs to be addressed. Sometimes you have to speak. Sometimes you have to challenge something. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, but you also have to know when the conversation has stopped being productive. You have to know when somebody is baiting you. You have to know when the conversation has become entertainment. You have to know when you're no longer communicating and you're simply exchanging insults. And most importantly, you have to know when your peace is worth more than your response. Because every time you respond, you're making a decision about where your attention goes. Every time you enter an argument, you're spending part of your life. You can't get that time back. That's why I'm asking people to start looking at social media differently. Before you respond, ask yourself whether the person you're arguing with actually matters in your real life. Ask yourself whether this conversation is going to improve anything. Ask yourself whether you're responding because you have something valuable to contribute or because somebody successfully pushed your emotional button. Sometimes the answer is going to be uncomfortable. Sometimes you're going to realize that you're not defending a principle, you're defending your ego. There's a point where we have to step back and recognize what we're doing to ourselves. We've spent years fighting strangers. We fought people we never met. We fought people from different cities, different generations, different political viewpoints, different economic backgrounds, and different relationship experiences. We fought Black men. We fought Black women. We fought young people. We fought older people. We fought people who look like us and people who think differently from us. And while we are fighting everybody, we may have forgotten to build anything together. That's the part that bothers me, because there's a difference between being connected and being united. There's a difference between having access to one another and actually knowing one another. There's a difference between having an audience and having a community. Social media can connect us, but it can't do the work for us. We still have to learn how to listen. We still have to learn how to disagree. We still have to learn how to forgive. We still have to learn how to communicate. We still have to learn how to love people who aren't exactly like us. And we still have to learn when to walk away. I'm not asking everybody to become passive. I'm asking people to become intentional. There's a difference. You don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to correct everybody. You don't have to defend yourself against every accusation. You don't have to prove your intelligence to strangers. You don't have to participate in every argument simply because somebody tagged you. Sometimes the greatest display of emotional intelligence is refusing to participate. Sometimes the strongest person in the conversation is the one who recognizes that the conversation has become pointless and leaves. Sometimes the person who looks like they walked away from the argument actually won something far more valuable. They won peace. And at 63 years old, I can tell you that peace becomes more valuable the longer you live. You start realizing that your time is limited. Your energy is limited. Your attention is limited. You start becoming more selective about what deserves a piece of you. That's why I don't believe everybody deserves access to your emotions. So let's remember what community really looks like. Community isn't simply people agreeing with you online. Community is people standing beside you when life gets difficult. Community is somebody correcting you when you're heading in the wrong direction. Community is somebody celebrating you without being jealous of you. Community is somebody telling you the truth even when the truth isn't comfortable. Community is human. Community requires patience. Community requires responsibility. Community requires forgiveness. Community requires accountability. And sometimes community requires you to sit across from somebody you disagree with and remember that they're still a human being. That's what we need to recover. Not some fantasy where everybody agrees. Not some imaginary world where nobody makes mistakes. Not some social media paradise where everybody thinks exactly the way we think. We need the kind of community where disagreement doesn't automatically mean destruction. So the next time you see something online that gets under your skin, before you type that 17-paragraph response, stop for a moment. Take a breath. Ask yourself why you're responding. Ask yourself whether the person on the other side actually matters in your life. Ask yourself whether this conversation is going to build something or simply give two strangers an opportunity to make each other angry. Because everybody doesn't deserve a response. Everybody doesn't deserve your explanation. Everybody doesn't deserve your attention. Everybody doesn't deserve access to your emotions. Sometimes you have to protect your peace the same way you protect your money, and you know you protect your money. You don't get your paycheck, cash it, or go to the ATM and throw it around to anybody who wants to involve their issues with you to get money out of you. You don't hand your money to everybody who asks for it, do you? So why are you handing your emotional energy to every stranger who provokes you? Keep your blood pressure. Keep your sanity. Keep your peace. And keep on scrolling. Because the next time somebody online says something completely ridiculous, You don't necessarily have to educate them. You don't necessarily have to correct them. You don't necessarily have to prove them wrong. Sometimes you can simply look at the screen, shake your head, put the phone down, and remember something that our elders understood long before the internet ever existed. Some people are simply not worth the argument, and everybody doesn't deserve a response. Some people deserve a scroll. On to the next one. Like I like to say, thank you so much. Let me know what you think. LanceScurv out, and I'll say it again. On to the next one. Much love to you all. I enjoyed myself. Peace.